Thank you, Tony. Walking example of selfless service. Now it is my distinct honor to introduce Mr. Josh Green, Lieutenant Governor of the State of Hawaii. Josh Green is a local doctor, husband, and father of two who has spent his life caring for Hawaii's families. After completing his medical training, Josh joined the National Health Corps and started his life's work as a family physician and ER doctor in rural hospitals and clinics on the Big Island. Josh served in the Hawaii State House of Representatives from 2004 to 2008, and in the Hawaii State Senate from 2008 to 2018, where he chaired the Health Committee and Human Services Committee. He now serves as the Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii. Please welcome to the stage, Lieutenant Governor and Dr. Josh Green.
Aloha. Thank you for including me, from my heart. It's humbling to be in front of soldiers, their families, and people that commit their lives to our country. It really is. My service was not in harm's way. It was National Health Corps, but it got to the place where I got to meet a lot of our military that lived in Hawaii, that had in many cases fallen out of care in Hawaii on the Big Island where people were suffering. And so it has been an honor to be there as a doctor and just to be witness to many of the challenges that Tony and Carlos and so many of us are aware of. So again, thank you for including me today. It's humbling. It's very humbling. Many years ago, my uncle, Greg, was an ROTC gentleman at Cornell and had an extraordinary experience. He became a naval officer. He was an engineer, nuclear engineer, served proudly in the Navy. And then in 1989, on March 4th, took his own life after suffering depression, after feeling, I think, a sense of displacement from the camaraderie that he had in the Navy, and all of the challenges that we know are very real for our soldiers, for their families, based on sacrifice, based on commitment. And I watched how that rippled through my family. To lose a brilliant man who had a great education, who had a career in the military, who was an officer. And it was extremely difficult for us to understand why that could happen, how that could happen. And I can't say that I understand even now. We've wrestled with it. My grandmother wrestled with it till her last days. We just loved him. He loved his country, but he fought through the many things that we see. And I wanted to share that story with you because I know how relevant it is today. In talking with John Henry Felix, and he reminded me that now 20 people a day, 20 of our soldiers a day still commit suicide. Thank God, down from 22 not long ago, as we spent more time, more attention, more resources on our beloved soldiers' mental health care. But these are some of the fights of our times. And I just wanted to share that personal story with you because I see how real it is in all of our lives. So a round of applause for you for fighting for our nation and for taking on those demons and protecting our fellow soldiers. So thank you for that. But on behalf of the governor and myself, I was so pleased to know that this summit was occurring, because putting people under the same roof to share, to explore new ideas, to explore what we need here in Hawaii, to bring the commanders from Tripler and from all of those organizations that are fighting for our veterans and their families in one space, I think it should show a strong commitment. It's never enough. It will take resources. It will take partnerships, some of the partnerships that I'll mention here in a moment. It'll take all of the work, because why were we soldiers in the first place? Protect our country, to look out for our citizens. Because in many ways, those who committed their careers and lives cared even more than the regular citizen out there to make sure Americans were going to be safe. We're going to have economic prosperity, that would not fall into homelessness like we see as a crisis here, that would get health care without having to worry that they might not have mental health care, to sometimes get treatment for our addictions, which so many of us have. That's why we fight for this country. And frankly, we look outward, beyond our borders, and we fight for other countries too, because we know they struggle without the same ideals that we've often had in America, without the same commitment to freedom and to peace, frankly. So again, incredibly humbling to be with you. Now I have a few slides, I thought I'd bring those up. These are just some basic pictures that my team and I have experienced in the past few months as we've taken on some of the challenges in America, here in Hawaii in America. And many of these shots are with veterans, sitting across from individuals that have been out in the street too long. You can see how thin some of the gentlemen are. They don't have great nutrition, they in fact have malnutrition, and the children that have fallen out of the way. It's unacceptable to even have one veteran not have housing, as Tony was pointing out. Whether it's home ownership or an apartment or something affordable, these issues come together for the civilian folks among us, for the military, but we know that that is not acceptable. If you served your country, just affording the basic human right of housing and healthcare has to be there, and that's, I believe, where we should go. No veteran should ever have to worry about getting a quick medical appointment, talking to a psychologist, getting their checkups, whatever that may be. It was great talking to the commander. She and I both trained in family medicine. In our brief moment together, we talked even about beginning a new training program for additional doctors here in Hawaii, which would be able to serve at Tripler and across our state. So what you did by bringing us together today already has meaning. Let's go on to our next slide. I believe this is a gentleman. It's hard for me to see at this angle, but I think this was a homeless vet on Molokai. As we traveled the state, this gentleman's name was Larry. And not old, struggled with the many things that we struggle with. Just walking down the street in Molokai, where there's not that many people, we came across a homeless vet who struggled with addiction, who struggled with finding a sense of self in a relationship over the years because he'd been displaced so often. These are the real problems that we face, and I'm aware it's because people commit decades of their life to serve the country, but have to be displaced from one home to another. The home and the family, of course, is your actual fellow serving members in the military and all of the loving friends that are with you in these bases across the country. But it does disrupt. I'm always amazed that people's marriages can stay together when they have to be apart for 6 months or a year, or many times over the course of 4 years. So it's extraordinary from my perspective, the challenges that you take up. And that's some of the challenges that Larry shared with us. And next slide, I only have maybe 5 or 6 slides total, but this speaks to the mental health coalition that we have to put together. We're working hard to make sure we incorporate all of the military perspective when we put together what the governor and others have asked us to do, which is make sure everyone gets mental health care. Make sure the state hospital expands, so it's not just when people are violent drug addicts that hurt people, but also people who might have schizophrenia, or severe depression, or have come out of service in the war theater and just need a little bit of help. It shouldn't be a stigma anymore. It should be something that, as a part of life, as a reality of our condition, we support all of our beloved military. We work on suicide prevention, like I mentioned before. We fight to make sure that that number of 22 individuals that have served who commit suicide every year drop to 20, and then hopefully to 18, and God bless them, hopefully to 0 over time. But it's going to take work. And then next slide, substance abuse treatment. We have so much crisis with substance abuses because after suffering and struggling and fighting, it is pretty hard to deal with the realities of home sometimes. And it's hard to deal with the realities of being displaced from a mission. And I think a lot of people, if they're forgotten, naturally turn to substance abuse, and we should never turn our backs on a soldier who needs help with drug addiction, or their wife, or their spouse, I should say, or their child who didn't have them with them all the time because their father or mother was serving. So we'll add more capacity for detox, and we'll add more capacity to just help people get primary care, and we'll reduce the stigma at the same time because we're all in this together. One more slide or two. This was a great moment. These are all vets who live on Molokai. These old dudes were just fabulous. And I will tell you, talk about a humbling experience where you have a bunch of guys who served over many decades living on Molokai, and they are very opinionated, but strong-willed, good Hawaii citizens. Fantastic, and if you have a chance to go over and spend time with that crowd, I really recommend it. These are wonderful, wonderful Americans. And then I think our last slide is future veterans. These are great young men and women who are going to serve in the military because of your generosity, because of your support, because we all know that that is an extraordinary life to pursue. So I just wanted to say one more time, please always think of me as your ally. Please always make your first call when you have need to my team, to the people around you. Insist, demand that the state support our military, that it supports our veterans, because the veterans in the military support us in Hawaii. I'm so honored to be with you. Thank you for sharing a small part of your day with me. Please consider me at your side. Thank you again for sharing.